strong, empowered, authentic.
What's up, Ginger Nation? This is Tosh.
This is Darren, and you are listening to the Authentic
Ginger Podcast. Welcome, Ginger Nation, to the Authentic Ginger Podcast. I'm Tosh Taylor.
And I'm Darren Roach. And on today's show, we have an exciting guest. Sandie Byrne is a psychic medium from Ireland who says her trait has been passed down through many generations. Welcome to the show, Sandie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
So you're from Ireland, and you have red hair, which is just like a perfect match.
Being a ginger myself, I want to connect with more gingers, and I want to know what it was like for you growing up as a redhead.
Yeah, I suppose it wasn't too bad, to be fair. I'm in Ireland, there's quite a lot of redheads, and there's a lot of people that would be more ginger, or as some people call it, strawberry blonde than I. I was very, very red when I was younger. And then as I got older, I got more darker. So it was very foxy red. My natural color was very, very foxy red. So, I'd have to say I probably hated it just because people used to always have this thing about redheads, you know. So when I got old enough, I dyed it blonde.
Dyed it blonde.
Yeah, I did. I thought blondes would have more fun.
And so what did you find out about that? Was that true?
No.
No.
Definitely not. Well, I was living in Germany at the time, and everybody used to be enthralled with red hair. Right. So going blonde wasn't the best idea.
So did you have any friends that were redhead that you kind of seeked out and hung out with, or were you maybe one of only maybe a few in your school, or was there lots?
No, there was lots of redheads. Yeah, in my school. Yeah, there was. It's Ireland. Although I believe I couldn't swear by it, but I've read that the red actually comes from the Vikings. So natural, Irish people would actually be very dark haired and blue eyed. Mm-hmm. And so this was introduced from the Vikings. And last year I did one of those DNA tests. And as it turns out, I'm 97.8% Irish and like 2.2% Finnish or something.
No
really?
Way. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I was so surprised because, going back generations and generations and generations, my family are Irish. So it's obviously in there somewhere. 2.2%. So yeah. I feel an affinity with the Finnish if there's anybody listening.
That's awesome. So with your hair color, when you changed it, what was the response? I mean, did you feel different? I mean, I know you thought you had more fun as a blonde, but did you feel different? Did you act different? Were you kind of like, yeah, this is a new identity, and it's not me, but it's me for now. How did that feel for you? You didn't realize until you looked in the mirror, and then you remembered, oh, I'm blonde. You're just you. Right. And how quick did it turn around and you went back to your natural hair color?
Oh, I was so many different colors over the years.
Oh.
Yeah, I was Spice Girl red. Do you remember Ginger Spice?
Oh, yes. Of
course.
I went that red at one stage and had the blonde streaks down the front.
Yeah.
And I had different color streaks through my hair at different points. So I guess in my late 20s then I went back to my normal color.
I mean, you must have been paying hairdressers a lot of money because you know how hard our hair is to dye. It doesn't take, right? And especially bleaching. Holy geez.
Yeah, it ruins your hair. My hair was ruined. It took a long time to come back to normal. It really did. It was dry as anything. I actually ended up cutting it because my hair was actually down to my waist for many, many years. Yeah, so it was very long. So I actually ended up cutting it right up to my shoulders. And of course, I'm doubly lucky because I have the curl. Yeah. So cutting it up to your shoulders means it bounces up, even further. So I was beautiful for quite some time until it grew down again.
That's great. Hey, Tosh, is your hair curly? I can't remember if we know this. Yes. It is curly.
But it's not beautiful tight curls like Sandie's. Mine is, I am quite literally 50% mom, 50% dad. So half of it's wavy and half of it's curly.
Oh, right. No.
Yeah,
it's straighten it every single day.
I do. Yeah, I do. And it's so, and we have a ton of hair. So yeah, it takes a lot of work, and it hasn't, like some people I know, like if they do their hair enough, it will like start to be trained that way. Nope. This hair has a mind of its own.
And have you ever tried the 12-week blow dry? I've often considered trying that.
No, what's that? Tell me more.
So they have this thing. I have never had it. because I'm afraid it'll dry my hair out again, and I had such a bad experience with that in the past. But you can go to the hairdressers now and you can get a 12-week blow dry. So whatever they do, they straighten your hair, and even if you wash it, it stays straight for 12 solid weeks.
What?
Yes.
This might just be an Ireland thing, and if that's one more excuse for me to come visit,
yeah, right.
So be it.
Absolutely, you have to come. It's like the reverse of a perm, but it's not permanent.
So it's like a permanent straightener then, like a chemical straightener that I remember doing my wife's hair with a semi-permanent straightener, and I'm going to tell you right now, this was early in our relationship, and I did anything she wanted me to do, and it took 6 hours. I took like just pieces of hair and then just it was just constant like hair touching for 6 hours. And I thought, don't know if I'm ever going to do that again. I just don't think I could do that. So yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with that process, but interesting. It's called 12-month blow dry.
12 week.
12-week blow dry. 12 months. Yeah, like there you go. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm coming over too, Tosh.
Yeah. Bring your daughters. They'll love it.
That's right. Exactly.
100%. But my favorite tool, I'm sorry, but if you've tried it, have you got one of those hair dryers? It's actually a brush. I use a Babyliss big brush. If I'm going somewhere, I generally don't leave it like this. You know, if I'm going out or to an occasion or whatever, I do it myself, maybe at home. And that's the best hair thing I've ever bought. I have every size of a GHD, but the best product I ever bought was the Babyliss blow dry, big brush blow dry, I think it's called.
Okay, I'm going to have to look that one up because mine is not good.
Is it not? No, I love mine.
Okay, I'm going to look that one up too because the straightening every day is exhausting as one can assume.
And I found even, you know, I think it's only as I got older and more, and you know, I'm older than you, so I'm in my 40s now, and your hair changes. It does. It really changes texture. And to use kind of, you know, I want to say a good shampoo, but not even the ones you buy in the hair salons. You have to use something that doesn't have all these products in it. So I'm using something at the moment just called Mugu. They're an Australian company, and you buy it in the chemist, and it hasn't got any of those silicone things or any of those, you know, nasty things that really dry out your hair. And I find them brilliant. Mugu.
I mean, like we're 5 minutes in, and I've already written down 2 tips.
Right. So pay attention, all you redheads listening. There's some nuggets right here already.
Yeah, Mugu.
So Sandie, you're a psychic medium.
Sure am.
I'm a fan. No, I'm not a fan, actually. I'm going to take that back. I'm a person that tries to believe in this kind of stuff. And I just can't seem to wrap my brain around it. So I'm not gonna lie and say I know exactly what it's all about. I know what it means. I know what it does. I know nothing. So it's really hard for me to make a judgment statement as I just did. Take us through a psychic medium.
So, well, first of all, I suppose it's important for people to understand the difference between a psychic and a medium, because they're two different things.
I was going to ask that too.
Yeah. Okay. So in simple terms, a psychic is someone who reads the energy of the living, and a medium is someone who reads the energy of the dead. Okay.
Right.
So a psychic is what would have been called in the olden days a fortune teller. Okay. So anybody that reads tarot cards, tea leaves, crystal balls, palms, all that sort of stuff, they're talking about what's coming up in your future. Okay. Whereas the medium just talks to dead people. And I say just in the loose form, but that's what they do. So they're two very different things. Okay. So I don't know really what to say to you, because I come from a long line of psychics and mediums. You know, my grandmother read tea leaves, my great-grandmother read palms, and she also did spirit readings. You know, her mother read bones and stones to tell people's future as well. So it was always something that was accepted. Now, I wouldn't say, people often say to me, oh, you were probably growing up believing all that BS. And not necessarily, it wasn't like, you know, the daily discussion growing up. But you weren't discouraged. You know, the way a lot of people would say, oh, that child is a bit mad, or she's got an imaginary friend, or all that kind of stuff. Because I always saw spirit. I didn't know it was any different. I thought everybody could see it. So for me, it was a very, very natural thing. Yeah, so growing up, but it wasn't something, funnily enough, I think kids are spot on. They know not to talk about it, you know? And where I grew up, and if you imagine Ireland like a teddy bear, so where I live is like the belly button. Okay, so it's right in the center. And it's where they used to train all the Catholic priests.
So every single morning on my way to school, I went to a convent school for 13 years. Okay.
Wow.
So every single morning you saw about 800 to 1,000 student priests processing across the street from the college to the cathedral. You know, it wasn't the place where you talk about talking to dead people. It just wasn't done. Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I kind of kept it to myself, and didn't talk much about it. And then when I was 7, my granny died. And my granny loved my hair. And we were in the hospital with her the day she died. She was only 56 years old. And when my mother went to the nurses station, we didn't have mobile phones back in 1982. I was 7. And when she went to the nurses station to call her brothers and sisters, I was left sitting with my nanny, and I didn't know what passed away meant. You know, I was 7. I was sitting there, as I say, my mother was gone and the curtains were pulled around the bed, obviously. So I was sitting there holding my nanny's hand. But at the same time, she was standing behind me playing with my hair. She used to love playing with my curls and plaiting my hair and stuff. So I was talking to her, but this didn't seem weird to me. And then the nurse popped her head in the curtain and she said, "Did you call me lovey?" And I was like, "No, I'm just talking to my nanny." And she went, "Oh, okay." And she walked out again. So until my mother came back, and then she said, "Who are you talking to?" Because she could hear me walking down the ward. And I said, "Just talking to Nanny." And she's like, "All right, okay. Is she okay?" You know. So it was kind of accepted. You know, my grandmother was the kind of woman. Have you ever been sitting down, maybe having a cup of tea or something to eat, and the door would open? Just randomly. My granny would put out a cup and she'd fill it with tea and she'd say, "Come in and sit down with us," you know, and she'd welcome them in as if there was someone there with us, you know, because she could see people as well. So it was never discouraged, but not overly encouraged, if that makes sense. You know. So I suppose between the jigs and the reels, you know, we got to this point. Let's fast forward to where I am now. So yeah, so I do both kinds of readings. I do psychic readings and I do mediumship readings. So I talk to dead people. I've always considered myself more of a medium than a psychic. Just because I suppose I've always seen dead people. And I don't remember a time where I didn't see dead people. So for me, it's always been what I embraced first and foremost. The psychic stuff came afterwards. And then I also do spiritual healing, and that came way afterwards. So it's just intuition, you know. I'm not any different than anybody else. I know I work and I call myself a psychic medium, but I'm not any different to anybody else. I don't have any special gifts, or, you know, I'm not chosen by anybody in the spirit world. I've just developed the ability to connect with them. And I liken it to learning to speak German or learning to speak Italian or something. It's just learning a different language, that's all. And once you do that and open up, you can speak to them yourself.
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask. Like if this can be taught, or if you can self-teach yourself to you know, to do that. I mean, and then the other side of it is, do you really want to? You know, I'm of the mindset I don't know if I want to turn behind me and see somebody, you know, because I don't know what to expect. And Tosh, what about you? I mean, are you into this kind of thing?
I sure am.
Yeah, I can tell she's listening.
I am soaking in every word.
Yeah.
Soaking in every word. I have always been told, and maybe it's somewhere I read somewhere, that spirit won't come to you unless you're ready. And there are many times that I have been in a room and not felt alone, and I just go, I'm not ready, and then it goes away. So that
interesting.
Really, and I have been like that too since I was a kid, and I feel the same way. But I wonder, was there a time where you kind of pushed it aside and tried to do something other, but it just keeps coming back to you?
Yeah, 100%. I did when I was a teenager. Well, first of all, obviously teens or children, they don't want to be different than other teens or children around them. So you don't talk about it. But there was one year. So as I said, my granny died when I was only 7. And my granddad obviously then was a widower. So when he got cancer, he came to live with us. But he'd always been, I was raised, myself and my sister were raised by a single mom. So my granddad was always the father figure for us. He used to come in and do all the jobs in our house. You know, he used to come in and give us, you know, 50 pence every week to spend, you know, out of his pension. He was great. And he got cancer and he came to live with us, but he passed away when I was 14. And just 10 weeks later, another relative, he was my mother's youngest brother, but because we were raised with him, he was like my older brother. And he was killed in a motorcycle accident just 10 weeks after my granddad had passed. And that made me very angry. Well, I could understand my granddad passing, just because, Tosh, if you're interested to hear this, when my granddad died, I'd sat with him all day because my mother had to go out to work. So I spent 8 hours sitting with him. So I have the firm belief that he waited until I left because he didn't want to die in front of me. But I wasn't gone up the stairs long. And my mother said, after being unresponsive for about 4 days, he sat bolt upright in the bed. He put his hand out in front of me. He said, "Wait for me, Daddy, I'm coming." And then he was gone.
Jeez.
Just like that. Totally unresponsive. And his father, like, had obviously died years and years before.
Right.
I never met him. And then Kevin died in a motorcycle accident. So as I was saying, while I could understand Granddad being sick and dying, and I had seen him leave, when everybody was coming and the undertaker was coming, I looked out the upstairs window and I could see him leaving with my grandmother. I could see their spirits leave together. So I could understand that. But Kevin was 31 years old. He was like my older brother. I spent so much time with him, and he had been left the home house. So he was moving back home to be nearer to us and everything. I couldn't understand that. And I couldn't forgive Spirit. I said, you want me to give out these messages, you want me to tell people this, that, and the other, and you can't even leave Kevin here with me, So I was really angry and I pushed it away for quite some time. But now they didn't leave me alone. So in the same way that you feel, like you're never alone, they were always coming in. I spent those years, 14, 15, 16, 17, sleeping with my mother because they didn't come in as much when I was sleeping with my mom. But if I was in my own room, I was in a little single bed. Being the youngest, I got the box room. So they pulled the duvet off the bed. My spirit guides pull the duvet off the bed, knock over the pictures, whatever I had on my dresser, shake the bed, bang, trying to get my attention. So I used to run and jump into bed with my mom. So then I moved to Germany when I was 17 and I completely ignored them, completely didn't want to know until one day I was out jogging. And I was living, it was 100 kilometers southwest of Frankfurt was where I was living. There's a place called Rothenburg. And it's just all vineyards for miles around. As far as you can see, it's just all vineyards. It's a real winemaking region. It's called the Weinstrasse.
Sounds magical.
Yeah, it's beautiful. But like you'd go out and apart from a few cars going to work at like 8 o'clock in the morning and coming home again at like 5 in the evening, you wouldn't see anybody. So I was out running at about 2 in the afternoon, 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And I had my beautiful 1990s headphones on with the orange foam and, a little personal cassette player in my belt.
A Walkman, yeah.
Yeah. And I was listening to Simon and Garfunkel. And next thing I just heard this run being screamed at me. I was like, okay, there's someone behind me now taking the piss because I'm running. Okay. And so I looked behind and there was nobody there. And I thought, that's weird. So I kept running on. And next thing I heard it again, run as quick as you can. So I said, right now, there's someone hiding in the vineyard making fun of me. So I took them off, turned off the music, and I was like literally standing in the road, like looking around, where is this person? And next thing this car drove past, and I can still see it in my head today, like a little black hatchback car. And the music in someone's car is going so loud, it's going doof, 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 and you can nearly feel the vibration. And it was kind of happening in slow motion. This car passed, there was 4 or 5 guys inside, and they all stared at me as they passed, and I stared at them. And then they were gone. So I started running again, turned on my music. And next thing I heard this, run like F, okay? Do it now. And I was starting to get scared. I didn't know what was going on. So I ran into the vineyard. I ran halfway down the field and jumped in between 2 bushes of vines, cut the arms off myself. And I waited and I thought, you know what? I feel really stupid now. I hope nobody can see me, as you do when you're 17. So anyway, 2 minutes later, the car came back and these guys got out, 5 of them, and they started looking around. They spread out on each side of the road and started looking around. They spent 20 minutes going through and looking. And when you're so scared, you can just hear your heart beating in your ears and that's all you can hear. So I couldn't even make out what they were saying. I thought, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. So one guy was about 3 meters away from me and they were like beating the bushes as they were going down. And I was getting ready to run when one lad up at the top, because you were looking up a slope to the road and he called them back. They must have figured I'd, taken a lift or whatever. And they went off. So I waited another 20 minutes before I ran the back way home, back through the fields. And when you're 17, okay, yeah, it was scary, but I didn't say anything to anybody and I didn't think too much about it. But years later, I read a story about a girl in the United States who had heard a similar voice. She'd taken a lift or a ride, I don't know what you call it in Canada, from a truck driver. And when she was in the bathroom, she heard the same voice telling her to climb out the window and run. And she didn't listen. And he kept her for 8 years until she escaped. And then I remembered, I thought, like, what would have happened, you know, if I hadn't listened to that voice? You know, so
crazy.
I just felt like it was their way of showing me, okay, we can help. We can't control everything, but we can help. And at that point, then I started to turn back toward them a little bit and started listening more. You know, now I didn't start working with them until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. You know, I mean, I might do a card reading for a friend or a friend of a friend or whatever, but I didn't really, and it was by accident that I actually started to do this for a living. I went to see a medium because I've always had a fascination with, you know, the whole thing, and didn't really understand it so much. And I went to see a medium that was on stage in a theatre that's in my hometown. And in the interval, there was a gentleman and a lady sitting in front of me. And I just felt the stress from the lady. And sometimes any medium or psychic will tell you, sometimes stuff just comes out of your mouth and you don't know where it comes from. It literally just pops out. And I tapped her on the shoulder at the same time, saying to myself, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I tapped her on the shoulder and I said to her, don't worry, your son is here with you. I said, but you're so stressed, he won't leave you to go on stage to talk to the medium. And I said, but he's here. And I said, and this and this. And I started telling her about him and, you know, where they had his ashes and all this kind of stuff at home. And she just started to cry, and she stood up and she gave me a big, big hug. And she said, he's actually our grandson, but we raised him from birth. And she said, yeah, he had died, and everything that I said was accurate. So when it got to the end of the show that night, you know, everybody claps and the lady takes a bow and leaves the stage. And it kind of, everyone stops clapping. It goes quiet just for a minute. Well, this lady stood up and she said, never mind that woman on stage. If you want to read, and you need to go to this girl here behind me. And I was like, oh my God, please swallow me now. And so everybody came up and asked me for my number. And just like that, I had 3 months worth of bookings.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so your career began.
That's it, by accident. Well, I obviously didn't resign my job because this wasn't something that I thought you could do for a living. You know, it just wasn't. I mean, we're a very Catholic country. We're getting much more diverse now, which isn't a bad thing. But it wasn't something that anybody ever considered doing full time, you know. And so I cut down my job to 4 days a week. Then I cut down my job to 3 days a week. Then I took a career break and I never went back. You know, and after 18 months, I was on tour in Denmark, I was on tour in the Netherlands, the UK, the States, Canada, you know, so it took off quite quickly. Luckily for me, I'm not saying that doesn't mean that I'm any better than any other medium. It just means I got lucky. Yeah.
Right. It was good. It was just perfect timing. That's all.
It was just the time. And like you said, and I would agree with you 110%, you know, when the time is right. You know, because from when I was 17 to when I was like 30 odd, like that's a long time, you know, to wait and be ready. And personally, and it's only a personal opinion, I think the more life experience that you have, the better a psychic or a medium you can be, because you've had life experience. You can have empathy with things that people have been through. You know, I'm not saying, I mean, there's very famous people out there. He calls himself Hollywood medium. I don't know what his actual name is, but like he's been doing this, you know, since he was very young. But I often wonder, he's never had what we call, I suppose, normal life. You know, will he experience things in the way that we did? Can he really be sympathetic with someone who doesn't have money? You know, you just wonder. So, but look, it's the way it worked for me. And as you say, spirit will always watch you and they'll find the right time for you.
One thing that's always just muddled in my brain when it comes to this career, this industry, can you read people, A, without seeing them, B, without hearing them? And is there cues, certain body cues or movement cues that means something in your realm of work that lead you down a path to an answer or to speaking with somebody, you know, who's deceased? Like I have never been able to understand how it works, and I guess maybe we're not supposed to know. right? Like it either just happens or it doesn't. What is it fair to say that?
Well, there's no big secret, I mean, it's not as if we all get together, every month and we say, well, we're going to do this or we're not going to do that.
Right.
There's no secret society, Do I read people? I mean, it's very hard not to read people, but if you talk to anybody that I've read, what I tend to do, okay, so if I'm looking at you now, I will look at you, but I'm looking at your aura. I'm looking at what's going on around you.
I see.
And then generally I close my eyes, because then I see you differently. So while I see you and the energy around you, when I close my eyes, I see you with like loads of colors and I can see the energy in your aura. So it's like I can see you in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I say to people, I'm not going to sleep just because I've closed my eyes. I'm just concentrating on what I'm being shown in my head, And I say to them, and I'm honest, and I say, and I also don't want to take my lead from your facial expressions, because that will put me off. And I want to be authentic. And just because someone's kind of going, I don't want to not take what spirit are giving me. I want to give it to them. And all the time, I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm going to get things wrong in a reading. But generally what happens is I'll say something to somebody. Like, for example, I was doing a reading for two sisters one time, and it can be quite difficult because family members have a different view of somebody or a different experience of somebody. So it can be really, really difficult. And I said to these girls about a car that their dad had, and straight away one was like, no, never had that car. But the quieter one, it took her a minute, but she went, you wouldn't remember, she said, because she was about 9 years younger. The younger sister was 9 years younger. And she was like, you wouldn't remember. But she waited a minute because I stuck to my guns and I said, Dad's showing me a picture of himself standing beside this car. And believe me, I'm a person that describes cars in blue and red. I don't describe them in makes and models, okay? And I was describing this car, and I was kind of saying, it's kind of got a rounded bonnet, like 1960s cars would, right. And I was talking about it being in this racing green, okay? Because my boys are Formula One fans, so I know what racing green is. So and she took a minute, and when I started talking about the color and the shape of the bonnet and everything, then she came in and she said, you wouldn't remember Daddy having that car because he had to sell it because you were born. Wow. Because she was the unexpected baby.
I suppose so, with a 9-year age difference. Yeah.
100%.
Now, am I right in saying that, like, with a medium, like, you're not technically, in a way, you're not reading me, you're reading my spirits around me or the people that choose to come through to speak to me. So for my mother, who is a big believer, which is obviously where I get it from, no one can ever read her. It's always she never gets the wrong reading. Nobody ever comes through for her. She's tried like a zillion different times. Why would that be?
Look, and without meeting her, I couldn't say for sure. But just thinking of things that have blocked people in the past, maybe they're not a believer. I know that's not your mom, but some people, they come for the crack. Well, we'd call it crack, for you call it fun. I think crack is something different over there.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about the crack.
Yeah. So we have the crack, CRAIC. It's spelled crack, that kind of crack. So they just come to see what will happen. But if you don't have a belief, why would spirit go out of the way to come and connect with you? Okay. So there's that. There also might be the fact that maybe the first time she got a bad experience and she didn't have the reading, she was all psyched up for it. She got that disappointment. And every time she goes now, her energy's closed because she's thinking, this person isn't going to read me. Immediately her energy's closed, you know? So you have to be open. And if you've ever been, now you probably haven't, and I think Darren probably hasn't, but if you've ever been to see a medium like on stage, they give messages to the audience and that, they'll always say like, uncross your legs, uncross your arms. Because immediately when you do something like that, you close in your energy, you're like holding it in. Yep. Okay. And, when I used to do readings in person or at fairs or whatever, I'd always have like some crystals or something on the desk. And I even said this, I was actually interviewed on Canadian television when I was over there. And I said this, and I got so many emails from other mediums and psychics. And I said, tarot cards are really just a prop. And it's true. Because once you put out tarot cards in front of somebody, they start looking at the cards and immediately they forget about, because people come in and they're like, right, I'm going to be really cold-faced, they're not going to show any emotion, they're not going to move, when I say something right. But you put a card out in front of them, immediately their attention is taken to the card and bam, their energy is open to be read. So she has to find some way of reading, the energy. And every time, and it goes back to Darren's question there a little bit, can I read somebody when they're not in the room with me, or can I read them without the energy of their voice? I don't, because it's easier for me to read with the energy of the voice and to be able to see their energy on the screen. Now, in the past, when I started off first, I used to do email readings. And literally it would be like automatic writing. I would just type, and it just all seemed to work out. I don't do that so much anymore because it used to take a lot of energy. It's less energy. It's much easier. And I can get so much more when I can hear their voice. But, all the time when I connect with somebody first, when they come on the screen, I'll go, well, what's the weather like where you are today? Or, talk about maybe I've just come in the door from collecting my son from school or something, or I'll be giving out about my dog bark and just kind of getting conversation going, not asking them questions, not finding out personal details, just talking about general stuff to get people to relax, because the biggest thing is relaxing. And one thing that I would say to your mom, go onto YouTube. We're so lucky these days that we've got Facebook pages, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, we've got everything. Go and look at mediums online before she books them, because you have to feel drawn to somebody.
True.
And I say to people when they ring up, they say they're interested, whatever, I will tell them, I will say, go onto my YouTube page, go onto other people's YouTube pages, watch a few videos, see if you feel drawn to me. I might not be the right reader for you, and that's okay, because there's lots of us, and I would be honest, with people like that, because yes, I want to get a reading from them, but I want them to have a reading more, because I know what it's like to lose somebody. And it's a lot of money for people to dish out. It really is. You want to get something for them. Well, I'm hoping that your mum was never charged. What we say to people is, we guarantee a connection, but we can't guarantee a particular person. So I'm assuming when you say nobody's ever read her, I'm assuming they didn't charge her, because I wouldn't charge if I couldn't read somebody.
I you know what, I don't know, to tell you the truth. I hadn't asked. Now I'm gonna switch gears. So my last reading, the lady that was reading me told me that I have like a really bad energy to one side of me. And she said that, like, it's a woman, you know who it is, and she's always going to be there. She has something to tell you, but you're not ready to hear it. And she said, so I'm not going to tell you now.
Cliffhanger.
Like, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that's nice. But like, do you see bad energy come through people as well? Okay.
No, don't believe in it. No.
Okay. Right.
And look, I'm not saying anything. I don't know what that person felt from you. But I'm quite the skeptic. I'm the skeptical medium. I should call myself the skeptical medium. It sounds to me like she wanted you to book another appointment.
yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. I was really like, because everything else she got was bang on.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I don't believe in bad energies. I don't believe in hauntings. I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in negative energy. Like, why would somebody who's got out of this world, like, why would Ted Bundy, for example, want to come back and haunt people here? Why? Like, what's in it for him?
That's a good point.
He can't get the same gratification that he once did, So, like, I have a belief, okay, that once we leave this physical body and return to the spirit world, that we return to our spiritual state, okay? And this is the way I describe it, that if, God forbid, and I'm touching wood while I'm saying it, I had a car crash tomorrow and I lost a leg, okay? But then down the road somewhere, I died, okay? Totally unrelated, but I died, okay? You would not imagine me hopping around the spirit world for eternity, would you?
No.
Because that's a physical thing.
Right.
But so is mental illness. That's also a physical thing. Everyone is restrained, by what the physical features of their body, Like, I'm really 5'11" and naturally blonde, totally thin. You just can't see it because I'm restricted by this body. But like, each one of us are restricted, whether it's a mental thing or a physical thing or whatever. But once we leave this physical body and return to the spirit world, we return to our purest state. So I have no doubt that people like Ted Bundy, Hitler, or whomever you can think of, that they would have an epiphany on their arrival to the spirit world and think, did I really do this? You know, now they will have to atone and build back up their spirituality, you know, and make up for it. But they're not going to come back here and haunt people and, you know, try and murder people from the spirit world. So I don't get all this. Like, I'm 48 years old and I don't remember a time where I didn't see spirit. Okay. And I've never once had a negative energy around me, not once. And and one thing I can slightly remember, when I was young, I used to have a lady that used to come into my bedroom every single night, and she used to leave her little boy into the bed beside me every night. And she used to sit on top of the wardrobe. I don't know why, but she used to sit on top of the wardrobe and watch both of us sleep. And in the morning, she'd take him away. So he was my BFF until that, when my granny died, and my logic started to kick in, and I knew that I shouldn't be seeing these things. So logic is, it's a dream killer.
Look,
is what it is, you know.
I'm running out the door.
Huh?
I'm running fast. I'm out of there. I will.
As a kid, you wouldn't have realized. That's the thing. As a kid, you wouldn't have realized that that wasn't normal.
No,
good point.
Yeah, I thought everybody had somebody that came and went to bed with them at night. And my sister used to always envisage a girl jumping on her bed. And I've no doubt that that was some spirit that was around her too, you know. So as regards going back to the evil spirits, I don't believe in it, you know. I really don't. Now, unless she was picking up, now, all mediums work differently. You've heard of clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience and stuff. They're just like different languages. They're like somebody saying, you know, I speak German, French, Italian, whatever. They're just the different ways that mediums connect. So unless, you know, she's picking up that somebody has something scary or somebody's aware of something scary. But, you know, spirits don't become psychic just because they've crossed over to the spirit world. If they weren't psychic in life, they don't become psychic just because they passed the spirit. So they're not going to be able, they can give you their opinion on something.
Oh, I see.
But it doesn't make it gospel, you know. So I always say that, you know, people say, you know, what does my mother think of my boyfriend now? You know, all these questions. And, you know, I say to her, well, your mother says this, but don't forget that's just her opinion. You know, it doesn't mean you have to go and break up with your boyfriend, you know, because, you know, mothers can be very picky anyway. And especially dads in spirit, they can be extremely picky. So, you know, you take it as opinion if you really want, you know, to know about what's coming up. So I don't know if you got any impression for her, was she talking about maybe something that's going to happen to you or whatever. In that case, I'd be saying, you know, a psychic reading. But, you know, I'd say don't worry about it. If it was really that bad that you needed to know, she'd have told you.
That was kind of my thought on it, and it has been a few years now, so it obviously had put it out of the back of my mind. But I did, like, for a while I did dwell on it, and I thought to myself, well, I can probably gather who the spirit is, like, you know. But then I was like, she wasn't a nasty person. She just was indifferent. So, and Irish.
Sometimes we're picking up on their personality. You know, like I've connected with people, and you know, sometimes you meet someone on the street and you think, oh, I'm glad I don't have to talk to that person because they look like they're a whole heap of fun. And some people are like that. And if they were like that, then that's the way they're going to come through. Because if she said to you, well, I have Auntie Mary here and she's skipping into the room whistling, and you're thinking, well, she was a horrible old woman, you know, you're not going to recognize her. So she's going to come in the way you recognize, you know. So it may have made sense to you that you're thinking, oh yeah, I know who that was.
yeah. And I had a pretty good idea. But we're not talking about me. So me and you will book another time for that. I wanted to see if we could tie this back in just into redhead culture for a second, because it's had me wondering. You said you come from a long line of feelers, I'm going to say. How many of them had red hair?
Because I don't remember. I think that my I mean, obviously before she went grey, my mother's grandmother, I believe, was redhead.
I wonder because, like, I'm thinking gypsies. When we see images of gypsies and things like that, they tend to be redhead. So I almost wonder if there might be and this could be totally pushing it. Totally pushing it.
My mother a gypsy.
Yeah, I might be. I think that gypsy in Ireland is a far more offensive word than it is here. But I do wonder if there is a connection with maybe redheads being more sensitive to it. I do wonder about that. I know that my redhead daughter compared to my blonde daughter, my redhead daughter she has a lot more feeling and a lot more, like, I can see it in her. Not so, like, she's 7 now and she's starting to lose it, but when she was little, I could see it in her. And I always try to like embrace it. But my blonde,
now that you say it, probably, like, I'm trying to think of me and my sister, because my sister and I are like chalk and cheese. Okay, she's sallow skinned, black hair, dark eyes, just completely opposite ends of the spectrum. And I would always have been a lot more sensitive, than her. But even, when you talk about redheads, I don't know if you've experienced this, like, when you're getting your hair done, you have to be choosy about what dye you put into it. You have to be choosy about what skin products you use. I rarely wear makeup because it plays havoc with my skin. All these kind of things, like, as people physically, we're much more sensitive. So it would only be logical to think that emotionally we would also be much more sensitive. Yeah. The sun at the moment, even though it's only peeking out from the clouds, I'm the kind of person that looks out the window at the sun and turns bright red. Are you also like that?
Yeah. As much as I love it, I am a sun worshiper in the shade.
Yes.
From under an umbrella, I will enjoy the sun. Yeah. It's like I'm a vampire.
Wear sun cream, and I say, no, I wear sunblock.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I just wear long sleeves and like a beehive.
Big hat. Yeah. I even have a parasol.
I love it. I love it.
A Victorian lady going around, but I just have it in the boot of the car because you just don't know when you're ever going to be cut out. And I always buy the all day stuff because, like, if it wears off and I'm in the sun for like 5 minutes, that's it. I'm burned.
You're toast. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And my freckles are all making their annual appearance as well about now.
Yeah.
Freckle season. Yes, absolutely. If they would just join up together and give me a tan, I'd be happy.
We call that freckle season.
Or if you accidentally burned, it would turn into a tan instead of just more freckles and white underneath. Yeah. Why don't I get a tan?
Or you just peel and you're like a zombie going around. You're just peeling. Skin is shedding.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so true. It's so true. This has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for
that's right.
For humoring me and freaking the heck out of Darren. This has been lovely.
Can I ask you one last question, Tash? Have you ever gone east to Asia or anything like that?
No, the furthest I've been to Ireland, and that is the furthest I've been.
Because if you go even maybe kind of some of the European countries now, where there's other cultures coming in, but the further east you go, the more people will ask to have their photograph taken with you. And they call it strawberry blonde. And you feel like a superstar.
I could use some of that in my life. Yeah.
So you should book to go there.
I should.
There you go. This has been a great conversation. It's opening. It's slightly opening my mind. Again, I will close it off on purpose because I don't know that I want to know, which is I've always been like that. But I do have one final question for you because it's something I needed to ask because I just can't figure this out. When you're talking about a little boy sleeping in bed with you, and then the person up on the cupboard or the dresser, and these other experiences that you see people, I have to ask you, what do you see? Are you seeing nothing, or are you seeing spirit in the back of your mind? Are you seeing something physical? I just can't get my mind wrapped around what people see.
So when I was little, it was a lot more physical. Because children are very, what they see, and they just accept what they see. So it would have been that physical, but now it tends to be a lot more like energy, and it tends to be like telepathy because I can understand it as an adult, which I wouldn't have been able to as a child. So it really is like a transfer of thought. There's nobody whispering in my ear telling me stuff, but they'll put pictures, video clips, thoughts into my mind. And that's how they communicate. But yeah, I get what you're saying. And sometimes I would. So if I'm doing a stage show, right, for example, so when you're on stage, you have like 2.5 or 3 minutes with each person to get the essence of who they're looking for across. That's when you tend to see more, because for spirit to manifest a vision of how they look, that takes so much energy, and they can rarely show and talk at the same time because there's just not enough energy for that. So they tend to be quick things where they're gone in 30 or 60 seconds. So when I'm in a show, invariably there's loads of spirit around pointing to their loved ones in the audience, and showing me things about themselves. So it tends to be different in different settings. But if I'm sitting down on a one-to-one with somebody and I'm 60 or 90 minutes, they can't hold a vision of themselves for that long.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure that it wasn't what you're seeing was a cloud of smoke in the form of a person that's dangling around you and sitting up, and because that's all I see, because that's what the media has made us believe is what happens when you see somebody from the afterlife. And so if you can't open your mind to it, which again I have a very hard time doing so, then that's all you think it is, and then no wonder I want to run out of the room. I mean, I'm out of there when I see that
fear
smoke.
sells. Horror movies sell. Nice movies about people just knowing something doesn't sell. So that's why it tends to be, portrayed in that way. But it's not necessarily what it's like on the ground. Right,
and you've established that with me today.
Hopefully,
I will tell you that. No, you really did.
I don't try necessarily. I mean, if somebody like you, and you're very easy to talk to, and if somebody asks a question, I'm happy to answer from my experience. But I'm not necessarily the kind of person that tries to convince people. It's like I was being interviewed on a radio show here in Ireland, and somebody rang in, and this and that and the other, and you have to say it like water off a duck's back. And I just said to her, I don't like sushi, but I'm okay with people eating sushi.
That sums that up.
So I'll just do my thing and you do your thing.
That's incredible. Okay, so I assume that you do like Zoom appointments with people from all over the world. How do people find you?
Yeah, just on my website. It's just sandiebyrne.com. Simple.
And Byrne is spelled with Byrne.
It sure is. Sandie with an IE and Byrne with a Y. So it's Sandie with an IE and Byrne with a Y. So SANDIE BYRNE.
Well, Sandie, you've said it all. We've heard it all. We understand a heck of a lot more than what we did, or at least I did, since the start of our conversation. So I appreciate that very much, and I appreciate you coming on the show. So again, thank you so much, and we hope to catch up with you again soon.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to the Authentic Ginger Podcast.
Become a part of the Ginger Nation by liking, subscribing, following, and leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This podcast was produced by Tosh Taylor of the Podcast Hub Productions. Find her online at podcasthub.ca.